If you're trying to figure out whether 2026 is the year to buy in San Diego, or if waiting and renting is the smarter move, this video is gonna give the answer. I'm gonna walk you through the real data, what it means for you, and at the end, I'll share my personal opinion on where I think the market is heading. If you don't know me yet, I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego Realtor, and I've been helping buyers and sellers navigate this market since 2004, through every cycle, through every shift, and through every headline. And on top of all that, I'm a major data nerd when it comes to real estate. So if you wanna stay ahead of what's happening in San Diego's real estate market, your easiest and best resource is gonna be this channel. So be sure to like and subscribe. All right. Now let's start with what actually happened last year in 2025. 2025 has a few different narratives out there, but none of them reflect what the data actually shows. Take a look at this chart. This is the San Diego MLS median sales price data through December of 2025. On the detached side, these are your single family homes. December came in at 1,050,000. Now that's up 5% compared to December the year prior. Sounds like growth, right? But here's the thing. When you zoom out and look at the full year, year to date, detached prices were essentially flat, 0% growth for the entire year. On the attached side, which is your condos, your townhomes, your apartments, December landed at 680,000, up 3% year over year for a month. But again, the full year picture tells the real story. Attached prices were actually down just slightly, 0.7% year to date. So practically flat there. So what does this mean for you? It means that if you didn't buy in 2025, you didn't miss out on anything. Prices didn't run away from anyone. Despite rates having come down throughout the year, appreciation was pretty much a non-event. And if you use that time wisely, saving cash, paying down debt, strengthening your financial position, then you actually gained ground without losing anything. That's a win. But here's where I need to be honest with you. 2026 does not look the same. And that's what we need to talk about next. Let's look at what's different heading into this year. And there are a couple of important shifts happening at the same time. First, let's talk about rates. Take a look at this chart showing where mortgage rates were throughout 2025. At the start of the year, rates were sitting above 7%. By the time we got into fall, they had dropped into the low sixes. That's a meaningful move. And now heading into 2026, we're slightly lower still. And here's why that matters. With every subtle drop in rates, the number of buyers who can qualify for mortgages grows. People who were on the edge at 7% are now getting approved at 6%. That's not a tidal wave of new buyers, but it's a steady increase in demand. Now layer that on top of what's happening with inventory. So far this year, we're seeing significant drops in new listings coming to the market. And in addition, our overall standing inventory is dropping dramatically. This is exactly the opposite of what we typically see this time of the year as we move into the busier home buying and selling season. So think about what's happening here. More buyers are qualifying because rates have come down, and there are fewer homes available for those buyers to compete over. When you have more demand chasing less supply, one of two things happens. Number one, prices hold firmly, or number two, they start to grow. That's Econ 101. It's not a prediction. It's just how supply and demand works here. And here's the thing, for most buyers who spent 2025 doing the right things, paying down debt, saving money, growing their income, 2026 may be the year they're finally ready to enter the market. The question is whether the market will still have the breathing room it had last year. Because right now that breathing room is shrinking, and it's kind of shrinking fast. So obviously the question is, why is inventory so low? Where are all the sellers?
Where are they?
Now, let me explain this because this is one of the most important dynamics in our market right now, and it goes back further than most people think. Mortgage rates have been sitting below 5% all the way back to mid-2011. For over a decade, homeowners in San Diego were locking in rates in the 3s and 4s. Then 2020 and 2021 came around and rates dropped even lower into the 2s and 3s. A massive number of homeowners refinanced or purchased at rates at 3.5% or lower. All the while, rental prices grew, home prices grew, and new construction did not keep up. So here's what's happening. Homeowners who bought or refinanced during that era are now sitting on what I call a cost-based asset. Their monthly mortgage payment is often less than what that same home would rent for today. On top of that, the home has appreciated significantly in value. So their home is either extremely comfortable to stay in because the cost of living there is well below market rent, or it's become a potential cash cow rental if they ever decide to move. Either way, they are almost completely disincentivized to ever sell their property. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. For every year that goes by where prices either hold or grow even a little, those homeowners become more and more cemented into their current homes. The math to sell and buy something else at 6% rates gets worse, not better, which means every year that passes, it becomes less and less likely that a wave of inventory is going to hit the market from these homeowners. That's a structural constraint on supply, and it's not going away anytime soon. And on top of that, we're not building a ton of new homes for sale in San Diego. Between the cost of land, permitting, and construction, new builds just aren't filling the gap. So you've got limited existing inventory plus limited new construction. That combination keeps the supply side tight, and that's been the story here in San Diego for years. Now, before anyone thinks I'm saying prices are about to skyrocket, let me pump the brakes there, because there is a governor on all of this, and that governor is affordability. Prices can only go as high as buyers are willing and able to pay. That's the ceiling. And San Diego, the ceiling is very, very real. Redfin recently released a report that breaks this down in a way that's really hard to ignore. According to their data, in San Diego, the median home sales price is around $900,000. To afford that home under the standard 30% rule, you need a household income of roughly $231,000 a year. Now, comparing that to renting, the median monthly asking rent in San Diego is about $2,889, and the income required to afford that rental is around $115,500. So the premium, the gap between the income needed to own versus the income it takes to rent is 100%. You need to earn double to buy what you can rent here in San Diego. Now, the good news buried in that data is that the gap is actually narrowing. Year over year, the income required to buy dropped about 2%, while the income required to rent crept up about 1.3%. So the trend is moving in the right direction, just really, really slowly. And the reality today is still stark. For a lot of San Diegans, especially those early in their careers, the gap between renting and owning is massive. And that's not something to gloss over. So does this mean that renting's a bad idea? No, not at all. Renting can absolutely make sense in 2026, but here's the key. Only if you're using that time wisely. If you're renting and saving aggressively, building your down payment, maybe paying off high interest debt, strengthening your income. In that case, then renting is a strategic move. You're building your readiness. But if you're renting and not saving, not planning, not building towards anything, then you're just delaying. And that's a very, very different situation. Quick pause here. If you want to see how these numbers apply to your specific price range, whether you're looking at a $650,000 condo or maybe a $1.1 million detached home, I'm happy to walk through it with you. Every price band behaves a little differently. There's a link in the description below to book a strategy call with me. There's no pressure, there's no obligation, just clarity on where you stand and what makes sense for your situation. All right, now let's get back to it. Let's talk about rates for a second, because this is always part of the conversation. At the time I'm filming this, mortgage rates are sitting in the low 6% range. The general expectation from most economists is that rates will drift down slowly through the year, emphasis on slowly. The expectation is that we could see something around 5 3/4 by the end of the year, maybe, but there's no guarantee of that, of course. And here's what I want to be real about. A 1/4 point drop in rates, say from 6% to 5 3/4, that helps, it does, but it's not going to be a life-changing event in affordability. On a $1 million purchase, that might save you $150 to $200 a month. Now that's meaningful, but it's not the kind of shift that suddenly makes everything affordable for the masses. So if your strategy is to wait for rates to drop dramatically before you buy, you could be waiting for a long time. And while you wait, inventory can tighten, competition could increase, and the window you're hoping for might not open the way you expected it. By the way, if you want to stay on top of what's happening with rates, inventory, and pricing in real time here in San Diego, I put out a weekly video series called San Diego Market Matters. It drops almost every Sunday, and I cover the latest data, and at the beginning of every month, I do a deep dive into the full MLS numbers for San Diego County. If you want to stay ahead and stay informed of how this market is moving, those videos would be a great resource for you. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss them. All right, here's the real question, and it's not actually should you buy or wait? The real question is, are you financially ready and are you planning to stay in San Diego long enough for buying to make sense? Given what we know about affordability and where mortgage rates are projected to go, price growth in San Diego is likely to still happen, just not at an outrageous rate. If anything, prices are more likely to hold than to surge. And that's actually an important detail because it means that if you're not ready to buy yet, you're probably not going to get punished for taking another year to prepare. Just like in 2025, there's a good chance you can use 2026 strategically by renting and keeping your overhead lower and advancing your finances. Now, that shouldn't take anything away from the fact that buying in 2026 is also a good move, but for the right person. In this case, both paths can work. If you're ready, if your finances are there and you're planning to stay, then buying makes sense. A 30-year mortgage is always going to be 30 years unless you refinance. The sooner you start it, the sooner it's done. And the sooner you can lock in your housing costs while rents continue to climb around you. Your mortgage payment stays the same. Your neighborhood rent does not. Over time, that gap works massively in your favor. But, and this is important, your decision to buy has to be confidently backed by your financial ability to sustain it. Not just the mortgage, but the costs that come with owning a home. You have things like repairs, maintenance, you're gonna do upgrades, and then the things that pop up when you least expect them. If you can handle that and you plan to be here for a while, then buying makes sense as a step in your financial path. And I say a step in your financial path deliberately. Buying a home shouldn't be an urgency. It shouldn't be a panic move because someone on the internet said that prices are going up. It should come after you've taken care of your other fundamental first financially. Things like having stable income and a solid career trajectory, getting rid of unnecessary high interest debt like credit cards, maybe building reasonable savings beyond just your down payment, even contributing to your retirement fund, even if it's small. These things matter. Homeownership is incredible at building wealth, but it works best when it's built on a strong foundation. And if you're not quite there yet, that's okay. And I mean that. There's nothing wrong with renting right now if you're doing it with a plan. Renting strategically while you build readiness is not losing. It's preparing for the win. And the key word here is strategically. Have a plan, know what you're working with, and save like it matters because it really does. Now, I know some of you are thinking it, so let's just address it. What about a crash? Is the market going to collapse and reset everything? I was in the market when 2008 happened. I saw it coming in 2006, and honestly, a lot of us did, but nobody was listening back then. That crash was driven by a very specific set of circumstances. You had reckless lending, oversupply, and a financial system that was fundamentally broken. Today is much different. We don't have oversupply. We have the exact opposite. And remember what we talked about earlier, massive portion of San Diego homeowners are locked into mortgage rates below 4%, some going all the way back to 2011. Those homeowners are not likely to sell. Their cost to own is often less than market rent, and every year that passes cements them further into those homes. That inventory is not coming to the market, not in a massive wave at least. Combine that with the lack of new construction, we simply do not have the conditions for a supply-driven crash. We also don't have a single event on the horizon that would radically turn over the job market and force people into distressed selling. And even if something unexpected did happen, the banks have massive preventative measures in place now. Things like forbearance programs and loss mitigation options, similar to what we saw during COVID. That helps homeowners stay in their home rather than flooding the market with foreclosures. The conditions that created 2008 simply are non-existent today. So here's my personal thoughts on all of this and where I think the market's gonna go. And I wanna be clear, this is my interpretation based on the data and what I'm seeing on the ground every day. I believe that prices in San Diego are more likely to grow slowly, and I think very slowly in 2026, than they are to crash. The supply dynamics support that, the demand supports that. And affordability constraint, while very real, acts as a speed limit on growth, not a cause for collapse. That's where I think there's that inhibitor as to how fast prices are gonna go up. Now, my honest take, if you can confidently afford it and you're planning to stay in San Diego for the foreseeable future, getting into the market now is not a bad idea. I believe that in 8 to 10 years from now, most people who bought within their means will look back and be grateful that they did. That's been the story for San Diego's real estate market for decades. It's not always a smooth ride right out the gate, but over time, it's consistently been a winning bet.
I'll take that bet.
Now that's not a guarantee, and I can't give you one, and anyone who does is not being honest with you. But based on the data, based on the supply picture, and based on what I've seen over 20 plus years in this market, that's what I see happen. Now, before we wrap up, I want to share something that could be a game changer for some of you watching this. If you're a first generation home buyer in California, there's a program called Dream for All that you need to know about. It's run by the California Housing Finance Agency, and it offers up to 20% of your purchase price as a down payment, capped at 150 grand. And you make 0 monthly payments on that assistance while you live in the home. Let me say that again, up to 150,000 towards your down payment with no monthly payments on that portion. When you eventually sell or refinance your home, you pay back the original amount plus a share of your home's appreciation. It's a shared appreciation model. And for the right buyer, it can completely change the math on home ownership. Now, this program is open till sometime in March, but if it closes and you miss the window, stay tuned. Check into this channel because they relaunch this program every 18 to 24 months, it feels like. Now, there are requirements. All borrowers need to be first-time home buyers. At least one borrower has to be a first-generation home buyer, meaning their parents don't currently own a home. You need to be a California resident, meet the income limits for your county, and the home has to be your primary residence. Now, this program uses a lottery system, so it's not first come, first served. The registration window opened in February, and it's supposed to go through sometime in March. So if you think you might qualify, don't sit on this. If you're watching this and you miss the window, just again, stay tuned. Keep an eye out for it. It will open up again. Now, I have a full walkthrough video on the Dream for All program that breaks down the eligibility, how shared appreciation works, and exactly how to apply. I'll link that video at the end of this one. If this program applies to you, it's worth every minute of your time to understand it. If you're within 6 to 12 months of buying, I'll encourage you to book a strategy call with me, and I'll give you a straight answer, whether buying now makes sense for your situation or whether waiting and continuing to build is more of a smarter move. There's gonna be no pressure, no pitch, just clarity. The link's in the description below as well. And if you got value out of this video, do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe button. It helps more people find this channel and it helps me to keep putting this content out for you. My contact info is in the description below. Feel free to reach out if you have any thoughts, questions, or concerns. As always, I'm Karl Kyler, your San Diego Realtor. I'll see you in the next one.